A little shout out to Riverside, fellas. This is day 2. This is my second time with the Riverside app. So all those podcast folks out there, I like that countdown. That's what we're using here, Woody.
There you go.
It feels good. Also, I've been doing a little bit of smoke. I tell everyone right before, and I did you're my second. We're not in person, but I'm still going to send some smoke to you. A little bit of love.
All right. I can feel it.
Talk to me about where you're at. We're in Georgia.
Yeah. Atlanta, Georgia. Just been posted up in the off season at home in Atlanta, right in the city. We built a house a few years back and just doing that, watching my little guy get bigger and more fun each day.
Yeah.
I know you're in the thick of it. But a lot of mom the first 8 or 9 or 10 months. Then it starts getting real fun for dad after that.
Dude, you know that the day my kid was born was the day you and I were going to do this.
I know. That's fate.
Isn't that wild? It's like I feel I'm forever connected to you now. How old is your boy?
He turned 2 very end of September.
Okay, so I'll be 2 years behind you essentially because we're January. What's the steps like? Yeah. You told me the first day or so that the first 8 months are kind of dude, we're dumping, we're crying, we're sleeping for whoever knows how long, and then we're dumping again. What you were telling me the first 8 months is kind of like that.
I feel like it's all mom the first 8, 9, 10 months. You know, you obviously have an instant connection to a degree with your kid when they're born, they're a baby, but the connection they have with mom those first 8, 9, 10 months is just totally different than what the connection is with dad. And so as they kind of start to kind of grow a little bit and get a little bit more of their wits about them, then it just starts to become really awesome because you start to develop kind of that same level of connection that mom has had from the very beginning.
That's cool.
And yeah, at least that's my experience. I feel like a lot of people have felt like that too.
I will say it's been pretty special, just like watching mom and baby's relationship from afar. It's like the other day I saw him sleeping like at 6 a.m. Sun wasn't out yet, and dude, I just crushed work, just motivated. Saw that and just was fueled. But what makes me think about it, you know, we've been in sports our whole life, and one of the things that I've watched from afar is obviously people like yourself having kids while they're playing sports. And, you know, obviously we've been talking in clubhouses for years. It's always seemed like you try to have kids in the off season because of the difficulty of those things. But like, what is your take on that from your personal experience you've had with teammates? Like, what a wild thing to be an athlete and experience being a father as an athlete when you were. The reason I'm saying this is that baseball or sports specifically, we played as kids. So then to eventually grow and be an actual dad while you're still playing a sport that you played as a kid, it's just, there's so much tied into it. And I feel like now having a son is going to really help me understand something that I've always watched, but could never understand.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the biggest thing, as far as playing and having kids, you know, I think the most important decision you probably make in your whole life is, you know, who you decide to marry and do life with. Yeah. And just in our line of work, you know, playing ball, you know, we're on the road 8 months out of the year, spring training to season. And then even in the off season, you know, that person that you've chosen to do life with is going to be the mother of your kids. You know, them understanding and being able to be as all in as you are, so you can, you know, do the work and do the job you need to be able to do to last and have success in this game. And so I feel like it's just such a monumental decision, you know, who you marry and who you do life with, because then when you throw a kid into it, you know, there's a lot of weight on their shoulders, you know, more so than, you know, if you're just, you know, home, you know, 365, you know, 365 days a year. And so, you know, I've been fortunate to have a pretty awesome wife who's, you know, allowed me to do what I need to do always, you know, from the moment we started dating till 7-8 years into marriage, to do what needs to be done for my job, for my work, to, you know, be the best I can be. And so I'm grateful for that. I feel like that's a huge piece of it. Is, finding the right woman,
Oh man, it's got to be. I mean, it's the backbone. I always call Chelsea, she's the rock. She's the foundation of it. It's actually perfect because I was super fired. Obviously, we've been on the phone texting back and forth about getting into a conversation for a while, man. And it's super. And above anything, it's just cool to hear your voice again and talk to you. I've always enjoyed. I mean, I enjoyed hanging out with you from like the first time I met you, but then, the times you could pull over on the side and talk to you in the clubhouse and have conversations and et cetera, et cetera. I think it's something that you just said that really stands out to me that makes you so unique. And so as we're kind of still getting into it and feeling out where we're going to go with the conversation or wherever this takes us, you are one of the most disciplined people I've seen I don't want to, you can change my words how they need to be, very routine oriented, very focused, very able to understand even the mindset of what day it is, where it's like start day, recovery day, family time, solo time, friend time. I don't know, man. You've always been so, from an outsider's perspective, largely like present to the situation. Whether that's, I got to be a friend here, now I got to be compete mode. I got to be out, taking my mind out of it and watching, whatever, all these things. I think you'll know what I'm talking about. But obviously, I think that had a lot to do with, and it has a lot to do with the length of your career. But what is that? Is that something that you've found? You know where I'm going with this? Like, what, as I'm saying this, what's the feel that you're getting?
Like where it started, how you got there, kind of. Yeah, like I would say, I feel like, no matter what walk of life you're in, if you talk to people that have, had some success in whatever it is they've, path they've chosen, whatever, you always have moments or conversations, throughout, the course of your life that really stand out to you. And one of those for me, I was fortunate to have I went to 2 different high schools, 2 really great high school coaches in North Carolina. And, I was always, a pretty talented ball player, from the time I was young, but I went to, one of the better baseball high schools in North Carolina. And I still remember my freshman year of high school. And I remember you played the season, did really well, whatever. And we had a lot of teams, a lot of coaches have end of year, meetings, to assess, how your season went, blah, blah, blah. And I remember sitting down with my coach and, praised me, great year, whatever. And it kind of came towards the end of the conversation. I remember him saying to me, how hard do you feel like you work? And I kind of sat there and I was like, I think I work, pretty hard. And, at the time I was 15 years old, freshman in high school into my freshman year. And so he starts listing off, list off this guy, junior, on the varsity team, list off another guy. He's like, you think you work harder than them? You think you work harder than them? You think you work harder than them? And kind of down the list, 4 or 5 guys. And I'm like, maybe one of them, you're like, yeah, I think I work as hard as him. Then all of a sudden you're like, no, I don't think I work quite as hard as him. And then another guy, you're like, I don't know if he probably works harder than me, blah, blah. And he basically was like, if you want to get to where you're going, you can't let people outwork you. And he said, there's 4 or 5 guys right here on our own team, in our own organization, at your own school that are outworking you. How many other guys out there are doing more to make it than you are? And it's just a conversation I kind of, gives me kind of chills thinking about it, that I'll remember it till the day I die. And I've kind of, since then, I've done as much as I can for as long as I can, and whatever, not just baseball and everything, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to be all in, and I'm going to go do everything I need to do to be able to, achieve whatever the goal is. And if I don't do that, whether you call it, whether it's guilt or disappointment, or like, if you don't, once you have that level of discipline or can get there and you are doing things consistently for so long, I think that when you are not doing what you need to do, to achieve your goals. And so once you do that and can be consistent with it for a long time, it's hard to do it any other way. And I think something that's interesting, about guys that are so disciplined and doing these things, to me, discipline, for anyone that's successful, discipline is the foundation for success. Like if you're not disciplined, I don't think you're going to go very far. But I think a part of it that people get confused or think differently about, is if you're very regimented, very disciplined, and something throws that off or that routine off. The goal of being super disciplined, regimented, is it raises your floor to where your body knows, your mind knows what's going on, what has to go into the situation. So then when outside factors shift, or things out of your control force you to don't have the ability to basically stay in that routine, you're able to branch off of that, because the floor is so high from how regimented, how disciplined you generally are. And so, flexibility is a term that comes to mind. And I think that some people that, are could be more go with the flow, or, taking things as they come, could look at being disciplined or regimented as a negative in that aspect. But really, the people that are most disciplined, most regimented, have a better ability to branch off when things go awry, or are not, to a T, like they would be on your day-to-day routine or your week, or whatever it may be. And so the guys that last the longest that I play with, they all the most disciplined people. You're not playing 10 years in the big leagues if you don't have some type of routine, some type of an elite level of discipline, work ethic. Like, it just rarely happens. You have to be a one-of-one talent, to have a chance to make it that far without, being all in.
Well, it's like a sense of freedom almost, right? When you're that disciplined. I think that kind of goes into my stance of studying your ability to be present, because it's like that's the form of discipline, I think, too, or knowing yourself. And I'll come back to that. But there's a lot that I thought of as you were saying that to me just now. One, go back to when you were in high school and you have that conversation, because do you think discipline now becomes an innate thing? It was obviously somewhat in you already. And then the way I heard that is that's when the egg cracked. I'll use that as a metaphor, and you expand, you transcend into the next part. And now you've essentially acquired that understanding of what you just said about discipline. And you're able to break it down, move it, make it flexible, shape it, understand it. You have a bunch of track records to kind of articulate it. But do you think that was in you when you were that young, and in that conversation with your coach? I'll even use maybe the word embarrassing, like it felt embarrassing that you weren't reaching more into who you were, and you were able to hear that at that time, like at the perfect time. Because some people don't hear that till later. Some people hear maybe earlier, whatever. Like, what does that feel like to you? Was that sort of like that moment where you kind of transcended into something that you already knew you were capable of, and that conversation just kind of like said, now it's time, and you've grown that ability? Or think, go with it? What do you feel from that?
I mean, it's definitely an ability that you grow, for sure. I mean, not that I was embarrassed in that conversation, but it definitely was, it was a wake up call, because but even before that conversation, it was always in me. I knew, or had a general idea where I wanted to go. I wanted to go play, major D1 baseball.
Playing the show.
Then I want to get drafted, and I want to go to the show. But when you hear that and someone says that so, directly to you, you basically have goals that weren't aligned with, the discipline that it would take to basically make those goals a reality. You know what I mean? And so and then to me discipline, when we're talking about this subject, and routine, it's not a choice. People, if you want to accomplish something and you have laid out a blueprint or an idea of how you want to get there, whatever it may be, the people that don't make it are the people that look at things on a day-to-day basis as a choice. Like me, you come. Let's just take a regular off season for example. You have a routine that you're doing to get in shape, get strong. Your throwing routine, all this stuff. If I woke up every day and basically made decisions on what I was going to do based on how I felt every morning, I wouldn't do half of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the reality is that discipline it's not a choice. You lay this path out, and you wake up every morning, and your kid was up all night, I'm tired as hell. You know, do I want to go train, get my ass kicked for 2 hours, go long toss, go throw bullpen, go do my plyo program, go to physical therapy, get worked on, see a massage therapist, whatever it may be? Hell no. There's so many days you don't want to do that. But if you look at it as it's a choice and you give in to, you know, the comfortability of what, you know, that's the thing that these days with anything, people, you can't achieve anything without getting out of your comfort zone, right?
That's beautiful.
And if you feel like you're always never challenged, you're always in your comfort zone, even half as much as you are being uncomfortable, there's not a lot of evolution that's going to go on in your person and whatever it is, whether you're trying to grow just as a person in general, whether you're trying to grow in your career, whether you're trying to, you know, whatever you're trying to make happen. So, and that's a skill that you handle. Like, the only way you get better at doing that is by doing the things that take you out of your comfort zone, and you're training your mind to where, you know, we're working, you know.
So say on that thought, because so let me ask you this, because as life, could this be, I've thought about this a lot recent years, because you start having achievements and your skills getting better and you're climbing. So now all of a sudden you go through high school and you do become the Division I player. You do go to the big leagues. You do sustain year after year. You get the contracts. You've had the World Series. You've had all kinds of things happen and accolades happen. As life has gotten, let's say, materially more comfortable or more convenient, what's it like trying to balance, like, okay, I just got this contract and I've got to imagine psychologically it still goes, well, like, I can chill now, or I can stop that. Like, you've had to battle that for years. What have those checkpoints been like? Those awareness points, if you will.
I think this is a conversation we might have had before to a degree. You know, there's always something in front of you, right? You know, when you're at a level, I don't know how many, however many, 30 teams, 26 players, whatever that total is in the big leagues, the best, highest level you can play in the world at our sport, right? And it takes so long to get to arbitration to start making, you know, money that people start talking about. And then you know, a small percentage of those guys end up making the free agency, and then you start seeing, you know, full market value of what you're worth. But it's something at the end of the day, and I feel like for a majority of guys at that level, there's obviously some people, you know, that maybe they get their big deal, or they make enough money and they feel like they can
coast it,
coast it, relax a little bit. You know, be lying to say that you don't see that happen sometimes, but the majority of guys, man, when you're in it, the money's nice, but that is a product of what you're doing in your craft, the work you're putting in. Like that's just almost vindication for the work and the effort and the success that you've had in our having. At the end of the day, most guys I know that have lasted a long time in this league, that have had a lot of success, the only thing they want is to just perform and be good. They want to be successful at their job, at their career. The money is a complete byproduct. Yeah, it allows you to do some cool things, take care of your family, all of that. But when you're in it, you know, you could be making one of the highest paid guys in the league. But if you're sucking, you know,
it don't matter.
I mean, you're feeling that as hard as anyone could be feeling it. And there's only one thing that matters. You probably trade, you know, I mean, maybe a little more split bill, but there's guys that trade a lot half their salary. You know, if you're making $20 million a year, you know, trade all that money just to go and be able to perform and be the guy people sign you to be, that you know that you've worked to be. That's what matters. That's where you find, you know, purpose and, you know, and it makes you feel alive. You know, it's not the money. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think that's
that's how I've always felt.
I do hear what you're saying. I think that's the major part of the question, is that I feel like the money or status could lose your ability to feel alive, because you're talking about, again, it's going back to discipline, but you're talking about like a process of being yourself. How do I be the most me? And that's where I think, and I don't think it's just in sports, I think it's for all of us. It's like sometimes success can trap us because it becomes invisible around us and it lies to us. You're talking about going, what I'm hearing you say is you're talking about going beyond the money. You're thinking about, you're going deeper into that. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, it is beyond that because, obviously that's a huge part. And the more, the further you play, the more success you have, the more money you're able to make throughout your career. And that's great. But it also, like you kind of mentioned earlier, about how it can make your life a lot more comfortable, a lot easier. So it's, how do you continue to access the part of yourself that's grinded for years and years and years, and stay disciplined and not take days off because well, I've got a little bit of money now, it's not a big deal if I don't train today, or maybe I'm not, throwing as consistently in the off season as I need to be. You have to train that part of yourself. And, some guys do, they make some money and they're conscious, their brain can handle, well, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm good. I don't need to do this today, or, maybe I'm, taking this day off, or what, not doing what you're supposed to be doing. But no, I've never been built that way, man. I just, I feel like you have to be all in, all the time, or why do it?
Yeah. I mean? Well, that's where, I mean, but that level of training has had to evolve. I mean, when you think about how, like, I'm sure when you got married, it evolved. When you have a kid, it evolves. When you have the ups and downs, injuries, the success, whatever, it evolves. How have you learned, and this is a big question, I know, but if you were to start broad and narrow it in and scale it down into how you've noticed your own level of, we'll call it maturity, and how have you managed maybe some of the lulls or the highs of realizing, like, I'm now in this new body, mind, whatever, and I'm having to figure out the new level of training. Now, it might still be the same word of discipline, but you know what I mean? There's a different level to the discipline. It's not even, does have to be more or less. It's just figuring, how do you go through this? And again, from afar, you've handled things and been able to stay in your zone still, no matter what's going on around you. I'm sure that's been trainable. You see what I'm saying? Like, how's that kind of, scope it down for me?
100%. Yeah. So, I mean, like, you go back to the conversation that was like kind of such a wake up call for me in high school. So then what's the thing that you do immediately after that? I was doing as much as I possibly could all the time. Probably, at that age, it doesn't matter as much because you're so young, so you kind of can handle it to a degree. But I mean, you're training I would go, I mean, after that conversation, I was all summer, it was when CrossFit got big. I was doing CrossFit. Got after CrossFit 5 days a week. You go into a fall, we're literally, have school till 2:30, you're out. We literally would have training for an hour and a half, running, lifting, go to practice for 2 hours, and I would leave practice and go straight and do CrossFit home at 6:37, like doing the most, you know what I mean? But then obviously, then you go to college, you have more, they're killing you through college, and you just can more just follow instead of having to like lead and blaze your own, your own work ethic, because you just don't have a choice. But then, as you start to grow and mature and learn things and what works for you and all that, you're still doing everything in your power to, put in the most work possible, but you start to be a little smarter about it. You start to learn to become more efficient with the training and the things you're doing, how things fit together, what carries more weight, what matters a little bit more, than like if I have a day where, it's supposed to be a big, huge training day, but I also have a bullpen, then maybe it's like making sure your bullpen's first, maybe scaling back a set on, on your training day based on your load. And then honestly, just finding, being fortunate enough to seek out and find people to put around you, almost, as a team that you can learn from, to help you, create a system that makes it all make sense, makes it all work, from a performance to nutrition to pitching stuff, baseball stuff, all of that. Yeah.
This just came to my mind, but you know how what's fear been like? What's did I lose you, Cameron?
No, sorry.
Oh, you're good. I think of it like this. This comes to my mind. It's like, how have you handled being like scared of things? Because what you just said to me just now is like wisdom, right? Like you acquire this level of wisdom, and in time we get wise anyways because of experience. But as an athlete, I've always thought one of the things that's interesting about your profession is that there is a time window, and it seems rather quick. And there's a lot of pressure that put into that. And it's like that could also screw you up too, right? It's like what's your relationship with fear? And what's your relationship with how you've had to manage the time to become wise? Because what you're saying right now, I don't want to say is easy, but it's you've put in over a decade of learning what you just said. And so
For sure.
and I know what you're saying from listening to you and knowing you, but you've had to have had moments where you've been scared of what could be, or maybe I'm not here tomorrow, or maybe this is all over, or maybe I don't make it. You know, what's that like?
Yeah, I think my base, my foundation for all that is rooted in the work. You know what I mean? Like a big piece of it for me is that if I know, like in my heart and soul and mind, that I've done everything I needed to do to allow myself to have even a chance to be successful at any part of it, then the outcome of that I can accept. You know what I mean? It's the part that is terrifying is, to choose, an easier route, or to skip this day, or not do this, and not do something I knew I should have done in order to put me in a position to have success. That's what's scary to me is, not knowing or thinking in my head and in my soul that I maybe could have done something more to put myself in a better position to have a shot at success. What's terrifying is not doing that and leaving a part of it to the unknown, to where, man, if I would have done this, could it have turned out different? And so that a lot of that is rooted for me in the work ethic, the discipline, doing what I need to do to give myself a chance to have success. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, what do you even measure? How do you measure success? What do you view it as?
Well, that's such a great
You got
question,
me flowing
man.
now. I got the workout sweat off my forehead now. I'm not heavy breathing like I was barreling into this. I'm dialed.
Man, that's such a hard question to answer.
I know it is. You use your soul a lot, and I know you're you're deeply connected to who you are. That's why that question came to me.
Yeah, I think that, just off the top of my head, how I view success, there's a huge admiration I have for pretty much everybody that I play with, that is from the minor leagues to the big leagues, right? Because they're sacrificing and putting in so much to just have a shot to realize their dreams. So for me, a big part of success is being around and seeing people that have a dream, have a big goal. Because making the big leagues is hard, man. What is there, 20,000 people that ever played in the big leagues, or 25?
And how many of those played 10 years?
Like 2,500. Like not many, And not just in baseball, just in anything. Anyone that is willing to go all in and lay it all on the line and go after what it is they're trying to go after and achieve. And it could be something small, it could be something huge. Everyone has different dreams, different goals for themselves, but so few people actually just go for it. You know what I mean? And so, like, at a very baseline level, if that's you, and you've done that, and you've tried to chase something that really matters to you, and you put in everything you can to try and achieve that, I mean, it's hard to say that you're not successful. Just off of that fact. Now, obviously, people that have big dreams, big goals, big work ethic, all that stuff, you want to have a little vindication, right? You want to at least, have some form of, public success is not the right word, but you want to be vindicated. You want to get close. You want to be able to hopefully achieve one of those goals, because you're gonna have a lot of goals throughout your life, a lot of dreams throughout your life. And, it's not always going to work out, but if you laid it all on the line and you went after it, you're a boss to me, man, and if you're going to do it once, you're going to do it again. And you just got to keep going until that one thing just clicks and hits for you and you make it, but part of it is just having the courage to just put it out there and go for it.
Well, I think a lot of that too is so difficult because the courage aspect is needed because it becomes rather lonely. So talk to me a little bit about that with you, or just your perspective on it, because when you use numbers statistically, let's just go of the people who make it to the big leagues, the numbers are low. Then you go to the people who make it 10 years, obviously the numbers are way lower. And I love how you alluded towards it doesn't just have to be baseball, it can be any dream, anything that you want. But one of the things that I've noticed in my life regularly is the fear of going after what you feel inside of you when it's not tangible yet, it hasn't happened yet, and you can feel it. That's your soul, in my opinion. Your soul intuitively is speaking to you, and that's how you make the behavioral changes or the choices. But no one else can see the vision until it becomes tangible. Like, it's easy for me to look you up on Google and rattle off the tangible things. Like, and that's great. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a great part of it. But what is it like when you go down those journeys and you do have to go by yourself? Like, you do a great job. I understand what you're saying around having the team and whatnot, but you've also had to do it alone and courageously and fend off all kinds of the temptation of the world to not chase your dream. So have you noticed that? Or like, what's your relationship with the lonely path of becoming courageous?
Yeah, it's a great question. Maybe I'm a little bit of a sicko, but like I like that part of it, to a degree.
I love that.
Because there's, if you're the person, if you're around other people and, if you're not outside of the norm, then you're probably not doing something totally right. I forget whose podcast I watched a clip of the other day, and they were talking about, like, if you just want to fit in and be normal, like, you're never going to achieve or accomplish anything great. You're just going to, what is normal? Normal is just average. And so, like, I don't think I've ever told my parents and my wife know this story, but I don't think I've ever told anyone about it. So 2017, we lost when I was with the Dodgers. We lost the World Series to the Astros. Game 7, I threw game 4 threw really well. Game 7, I came in through 3 innings out of the pen in Game 7, and we ended up losing by a couple runs at home. Watched them celebrate on our field. Was one of the best, probably to this day, probably the best team group of guys I've ever played with. And my parents were all in town, blah blah blah. So we were living in a place called the Americana in Glendale. He's slow getting out of the locker room. We go and go back to my apartment, drop some stuff off, go meet my parents for food after the game, late night. And it just, part of being alone and part of doing things that people don't understand or comprehend is I remember having this conversation with my dad. I literally got to my apartment before I went to dinner with my parents that night. It was probably like 9:30, 10. I booked a flight for the next morning at 9:30 a.m. to fly from LA to West Palm Beach in Florida to go start training at Eric Kress's place, right? And it was one of the best years of my career, but I felt like I fell off a little bit at the last two months. I went crazy for probably 2/3 of the year, and then fell off some. And I wanted to fix it. I wanted to be able to sustain that for the whole whole entire year. You know what I mean? And so like, part of the being alone, my dad looked at me like I was crazy. Not? Like, he thought I was crazy. He's like, dude, take a couple days, like, whatever.
You
but
could
like,
feel it
in my head. I could feel it. I had something that was not tangible yet, but that I was chasing, that I was trying to go after. And it's funny, to fork off of this conversation too, as well, about, the work ethic piece of it, the lonely piece of that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
The lonely piece, the making it tangible. You have it. I see it on you. It's a great feeling. The lonely pursuit of chasing what you feel inside of you, and even your parents don't understand it. Essentially, in the moment.
Yeah. And so you just, you have to do things that aren't normal, that are out of the ordinary, that make other people feel uncomfortable. They could never understand. And you have to go after it. And I've always felt like that was inside of me. And that I was just bringing that example up. I've never told anybody that, but as to the lonely part, the part that people don't understand, and it all ties back to having going back to the whole choosing the right partner, the right wife that would understand that I would just leave her, in LA and shoot to Florida. She packed up our whole house and moved us back to Atlanta for the whole next 7 or 8 or 9 days that I was in Florida training.
Wow.
We went to her and I went to Europe 2019 after the season was over. I hurt my back for the first time. We went for two weeks. And at the back end of our trip when we were showing back up at the States was when I was able to start throwing again. We literally left from Paris. She took a separate flight back to Atlanta from our Europe trip, and I flew to Seattle to go train at Driveline, directly from Europe. It's just shit like that, man. The stories you don't hear from other guys that are making huge decisions that most people are like, why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. But when you want something and you're trying to go for it, you're trying to achieve it, and you're trying to be the best you can, and it never ends. Right. Even the guys, I've been so fortunate to play with some of the best players of my generation. You look at and every single one of them, Cy Young winners, whatever crazy years. You think they just go and sit on that Cy Young in the offseason? They just kind of do what they did the year before? No, they're evolving. They're trying to figure out a way to go to a whole other level. And the people that last and that are the best players that we see, that the most famous people, the Kershaws of the world, the Scherzers of the world, guys like that, they're going in each offseason. They might not be blowing it up. They have a lot of things that work for them that they like, but you better believe that they're at the forefront of trying to, evolve and do different things to try and take their game to a whole other level. There's nobody I know that just, if you're a guy that goes to the offseason, you do the same thing every year over and over again. Like you ain't lasting, and you're probably not achieving what it is that, you're trying to achieve.
Well, what is it that I don't know if this is answerable, but hang with me on it. What is it that comes, how do you find, what's things that you have noticed about how things get called to you? Like, how did it get called to you to fly to Seattle from Europe? Like, was it the frustration of that loss in the World Series that flies you to Florida? Like, what's the things that you do outside of the gym or outside of the family, like in the moments of silence that come to you? Because when you're evolving and you're doing something that people can't see, and you're right, but it's also like you're doing something that also hasn't been done. I think a lot of the reason why people do the same thing over and over again, or they don't last long, or they're not sustainable, they're not adapting, it's because at least you can read the blueprint of what Alex Wood did 9 years ago, and I can at least do that, and that takes away the unknown. That takes away what For could sure. this be? So what's that like?
I think a big part of it is I always felt like my feet were to the fire. Okay. I feel like that your feet are always to the fire, and it's time, right? Like I've always felt like every day matters, every minute matters. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That. So it's like
powerful.
Yeah, I could have. We finished that game 7. I could have waited. I could have gone on vacation, waited 2 weeks. Like most guys do, or even longer to start training, whatever. But like, it felt like I was not gaining as much of an edge, or it takes time. Like the hardest part about in-season stuff, right? You get in a bad, your swing's bad, your throw's bad. It's extremely difficult to fix things in season. And so you go to an off season, and you have what, like we were going to deep in the postseason every year, so let's call it worst case mid-October. Yeah. So
World Series, you're in November. Yeah.
So you have about three and a half months to train. It takes every day of that 3 months to try and work towards where you want to go. And so I just always felt like, if I let a day go by, 2 days go by, a week go by, it's just precious time, throws, training, all that stuff. that you weren't taking advantage of. And I just always felt like that for a long time, and have that kind of feet to the fire feeling that kind of pushed me forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I also there's also the beautiful part of all of us in duality is there's a shadow to our beautifulness. What have you had to balance or learn about your shadows? Because I gotta imagine when your feet are at the fire all the time, it's like you've burned them. We'll use that metaphor. Your feet have gotten
Yeah.
burnt. How have you had to learn your own shadow amongst this whole journey?
Yeah, I think I take it back to something you said earlier about like being present, right? You know, when you're always trying to, look a day ahead, 2 days ahead, a month ahead, a year
Yeah,
ahead, because you have goals and things you're trying to
yeah,
achieve, right? It's extremely difficult on a day-to-day basis to kind of be present, to be in the moment. And when you start to see even a little bit of fruit of from your labors, you know, whether it's, you throw to have a really great game, or, you player of the month, or make an all-star, whatever it may be, those things have never, at least to me, felt anything. The level of how good those feel don't come close to that level of how it feels when things are going poorly,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And you're
yeah,
always working every
yeah.
day to move on to the next thing. So something that's super challenging, for goal oriented people
Sure.
that are high work effort people, is like to be able to like live here, like be in the moment, to be present, and not just enjoy where you
Hmm.
are, but to, be present for other people around
Hmm.
you, right? Um, it's such a tough thing to do. And it's something I've had to like really try. And I'm still,
Oh, I bet.
I'm still
Yeah, me
trying,
too.
trying to,
Me
trying
too.
to get better at it. But it's a difficult thing. It's a difficult thing to do. And I'm working at it every day,
Yeah,
believe
you
me.
have to. I mean, it's part of it. Like I said, we all have a shadow, and the shadows are a part of these things. You said something about being on the future. I think one of the things that you can be really talented at is manifesting, right? Would you agree with that? You can kind of
Mm.
see,
Mm.
you've probably had many moments in your life where like, I'm going to go do that. And then you know how to do it. And then once you do it, you become more comfortable in doing it. And so you're
Mhm.
always in somewhat of this like becoming state, and you're getting there, getting there, getting there. But it's like the tug of war, because it's like, well, I can't get there unless I do that work today.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
does that reign true with what you just said about what you're talking about with the presence?
Yeah. I mean, like the word manifestation,
Yeah,
right? Well, it kind of goes hand in hand, law of
yeah,
attraction, like all that stuff. Like, I think a core part of both of those
mm-hmm,
things is like a deep rooted
mm-hmm,
belief in
mm-hmm.
yourself, right? How can you manifest something if you don't believe that you're worthy, or that you can get
Yeah,
there? How can you attract the people you want to be around, or attract
I
the
love that,
accolades,
man.
or the
Yeah,
success? It's all a deep rooted belief. If you don't truly, in your conscious, your subconscious, your heart, your mind, all of it, believe that you're worthy of these things, that that you can get there, and make these things a
yeah.
reality, you'll never get there. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
yeah, that's
But I do,
beautiful.
and I 100%, manifestation, law of attraction, and putting the things you want to accomplish out into the atmosphere, and you thinking about them all the time, where you are, where you want to go. And the things that branch off that is what you're putting in to be able to go there. I very deeply believe in it. Very,
Do
very.
you think that what's it been like when you get there, and then you get to the next manifestation, and there could be, like, let's say you get everything, and now have you tackled with, am I worthy? Like, I feel worthy, and I work so hard to get to that. But then,
Yeah.
like, what's it like when you're starting to get things? Have you tossed around with that? Like, oh man, I don't know. Like, am I allowed to win the World Series? Like,
Yeah. I think on a more like general
huh?
level about that, once you start to, accomplish major things that you've set out to
Yeah.
do, and you do them, the vindication, happiness, whatever the feelings you get from getting to
Yeah.
that point, to me, at least in my experience, it's very short lived,
Yeah.
right? And something that I've just finished my 12th year.
It's incredible.
You've had a lot of different
Yeah.
feelings, a lot of different experiences, and like not just in my career, but in general in life. I don't know if it's a male thing. I don't know if I'm sure everyone feels like this to a degree. Is that you want to feel purpose, right? Like I feel like at the root of all of
Yeah.
it, it's the work and the
It's beautiful.
purpose that you feel on a daily basis. And you hear people talk about, it's not what do they say? It's more about the
Yeah.
journey
Then the destination. Yeah.
than the destination,
Yeah.
right? Well, until you've gone through a real journey where you've chased something or worked towards something and kind of gotten close or achieved that, you start to think about it. The journey is your life.
Yeah.
Like that the destination is just a blip on the radar. The journey is your life. The day to day is your life, right? I saw a clip of Jordan Peterson talking about the mundane things in your
Yeah.
life, right? You wake up and you have breakfast with your family. You kiss your wife's goodbye. Maybe you call her on the way home from work. You have dinner. You have conversation throughout the night. That's 90% of
Yeah.
your day. Those are simple
Yeah.
things, right? But if you're doing those simple things well, then that's 90% of your
Yeah.
life. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing with going after goals. It's not so much the destination and the vindication you get from reaching that destination. It's purpose in the work that you're putting in to head to that destination. And then guess what? There's always another destination,
Yeah.
and the reason there's always another destination is because you want to feel that purpose again,
Yeah.
in the work, in your life, whatever it may be. It could be the smallest thing, could be the goal, it could be the biggest goal. But to me, it's just having something that you wake up every day that you're working towards. That I feel like that is so rooted in,
Yeah.
happiness, contentment,
Yeah.
and so, of living a fulfilling life.
Man, you gave me chills halfway and through that. That's so well said, and I couldn't agree more with that. And I think about that regularly because that's something that going back to the beginning when we were first talking. I mean, I'll pump your tires just for a second, then I'm going to get out and I want to stay on that thought. But that's something that you mastered. I hope that I said this to you a handful of times when we were with each other in San Francisco, because that's what really inspired me about being around you was your mastery to the boring. Like you successfully mastered so many what is perceived as boring things. And I think that does turn itself into a level of presence, but also on the same concept of worthiness. And this is just something I've thought about for a long time because I feel like sports is very spiritual. I think that it's a transcending of who you are. It brings you closer to who you are. Now, maybe you don't find that in sports. I don't think that's what I'm trying to say. I think a lot of people do. And then I think a lot of people find it after sports or whatever. I think it comes to us, but I think sports is a beautiful playground in a classroom that mirrors who you are. And everything you're saying, I think that's why it's aligning with me so well and it gave me chills for a second there, because you can win the World Series and be like, oh, that's not what I thought it was. Like, what's next? Because you're trapped by these destinations. It's like once I get the series or that paycheck, like all is good. And that can become the trap. But do you think that the classroom of sport has exposed you to you because you've had to go the 2019 back injury you said, or you're going to battle for the 2018 year, I go off in 27, whatever, all these things. Do you think that like just the thing itself as sport being as a classroom, do you think that that's what it does to us beyond like any statistics or any contract or anything like that? You think it exposes us to who we are?
You find out who you are real quick, and then you have a choice of who you want to be once you kind of find out. And I think something, I think it's, I guess I'll start here. I think sports like for kids is the best thing I don't care if your kid could be the worst player ever, but exposing your kids at an early age to all sports, team sports, they learn discipline, hard work, how to fail, how to succeed, how to work with others, disappointment, joy. Like there's just so many things you learn that are beneficial in life. And so for me, you start taking that into like a real career, whatever, and it doesn't have to be baseball, it could be anything, right? And all life, I don't know if this is I don't think it's a jaded perspective, but to me, all life it's inevitable. You're going to get knocked down. Like it's inevitable. You're going to fail. Like you're going to feel pain and you're going to feel misery at points in your life. And the people that succeed are the people that can push past that. They can just get up and they can keep going and start over and try again and start over and try again. Because it doesn't matter what mountaintop you reach, like you're not always going to be there. And it's such a skill. Like it's such a skill is being able to go through, hard times and whatever, it could be your job, it could be family, whatever it may be. But it is such a skill that you develop by only going through tough times in your life, to where you start to know and realize that tough times don't last, tough people do. And if I just keep showing up every day, I wake up and I can just show up every day, I will make it out of this. I will make it forward and I will get to greener pastures. Like that, to me, that is a fact. Like if you can just know that, and it's hard to just tell yourself without going through serious things, things that are deeply and profoundly you feel in your soul that impact you so deeply. But it's such a skill. And I believe that if you can just pick yourself up every day, no matter how bad or how good you're feeling, and just keep going, that it's cyclical, man. You're going to experience these things throughout your life. But if you just keep going, you will find greener pastures always.
Yeah, it's like it's mathematically producing. It will mathematically produce success. It's inevitable. You said something in there about starting over that I want to highlight, because we have to start over. It's like I think Jordan Peterson talks about this too, to bring him back into the mix. But we essentially have like 1,000 deaths in our life, right? Like we have to die 1,000 times over, because we're reforming and we're starting over regularly. And we have to grieve these, like, we have to burn what's we have to become what's worthy of us. We have to burn what's unworthy of us, right? And what was unworthy of us at certain points, at one point, maybe served a purpose. So it's like a death. But you said starting over, and I aligned with that recently. So it's stuck out to me. But why is it so hard to start over? Even though you're kind of a different person, why is that such a pain?
Because you feel like you're back at the beginning, right? And once you've gone after something, you've built something, you've chased something, and you put in all the work, all the blood, sweat, tears, and you feel like you're back at the beginning. You just what the amount of work and love and care that it takes to go back towards where you're going, and it can be daunting, right? But it's a part of it. Anybody that's done anything that was worth anything in this world, the hardest part, they just started. Like the hardest part is just to start and just go do it, and if you can just start and figure out a way to put one foot in front of the other, then things can start to snowball and you can start to move forward. But it's a lot of times starting over is so daunting. Like you're hitting on the feeling that you have of being back at the beginning.
It's the worst.
And needing to rebuild, right? Or towards something that you're trying to achieve. But that's why it's so hard, because it's just daunting to be back at the beginning, and you know what it takes to get where you're going. But that part is a choice, right? Are you gonna let it overcome you, and you're gonna sit back in your comfortability and just talk about it and not go back after it? Or are you gonna get back on the horse and, to give yourself a little reset, whatever that looks like is different for all kinds of people, and then just go for it, but that's why it's so daunting. It's like relationships. It's why people stay in bad relationships.
Rather
so
stay
long,
here
right?
than get something new. Yeah.
100%.
Is that what it's like when you lose the World Series? I mean, fortunately you won a World Series, but like, what is it like when you lose a World Series and obviously you made that decision, but you think of like, that's 9 months really. You think of the first day of camp all the way to the end. Is that similar feeling when you're with, because maybe it's different on a team. I don't know, but what's that like?
Yes. I mean, yeah, I mean, I lost 2 World Series
Wow, dude.
back to back
No way.
years. Astros and
Oh, I didn't know that.
Astros and 17, Red Sox and 18.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. Like I mean, it's devastating because like until you go there, like, and make a deep run in the postseason or make the World Series, like it's such a
Yeah, I bet.
grind. Like it takes so many of the right things falling into place to just make it, like, have the team make it there to have a shot to win it. I mean, it's definitely daunting, feeling like you're starting back over and having to play 162 again, having people stay healthy, make a run through the postseason, make it to the World Series. And then once you're there, everything's kind of, all bets are off. Anything could happen, right? But like, it was a conversation. I still remember talking to Scott Harris in 2021. When we were in San Francisco.
I just talked to Scott. Yeah.
It was one of the best teams, regular season.
It was the best
teams I've ever played on. I mean, we won 107 games, like crazy, right? So I remember we go to the deadline and we're like, what are we going to do? We're going to get anybody, do anything, right? Because I mean, as obviously we were winning 20 plus games a month. Like we didn't win, like, have a crazy month. We were winning the same amount like every month. And and someone in his position, I remember asking, like, how do you decide when to push the chips in, to go get 1 or 2 more pieces? And so I was fortunate enough. I've been to postseason 7 or 8 times, through World Series, done it a bunch. So I've seen like how some of these different teams, the successes that they had, and what the commonalities, right? And so, like, that year in San Francisco, something that I, saw as a foundation for like what I would think to, like, we need to push chips in and go for this was, you have your 4 or 5, veteran, all-star famous players, the Brandon Crawfords, the Buster Posies, Brandon Belt, and they're performing exactly the way that you would hope your star players would perform, having great years. And then you have, 2 or 3 young players, like a Lamont Wade has bust on the scene, has a crazy good year. Mike Yastrzemski, has been around for a little bit, has an unbelievable year.
Posey's on that team.
Guys
Posey killed it that year. Yeah, keep going.
100%. Yeah, killed it. And so 2 or 3 of those younger guys have great years, and then we have a great pitching staff. So kind of those 3 things, a couple really good young contributors, your studs are doing what they're supposed to do, and you have a good pitching staff. So to me, I'm like, that's what I've seen. The teams that have a chance to win the World Series, they got. So it's like, to me, I'm pushing the chips in, and then they went out and we got Chris Bryant, and that was a big help. And obviously ran into Juggernaut in LA. We lost that game 5 or whatever it was in San Francisco. I think we lost it 3-1, 2-1, or whatever it was. But it's just an interesting piece about it.
It is. I mean, what's it like when you have seen that much postseason action, that much big game action? Is it when you're playing a Tuesday night game in July and you have the gauntlet of the 162 game season? Is the big leagues ever not intense, or what's that like? I haven't experienced, I'll never experience that as a player, but what's that wavelength of energy from multiple World Series, multiple postseasons, and you still have to do all the mundane work of a Major League Baseball season? I guess that's a pretty good way to kind of finish too, wrap up a thought. It's like a large scale season of baseball is mundane in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that once you get a taste of the playoffs and experience that, it's hard to you just can't recreate it. Like the level of intensity is just so heightened, so high, that it's just impossible to recreate. So it's not that the regular season is not intense, in its own ways, but the regular season is a marathon. You play 162 days. We usually play 20 days on and get 1 day off most of the time. Maybe you get 2 every now and then. And so it's a different type of intensity throughout the year. You're trying to maintain a level of consistency, and then you get to the postseason, and it's just a dead on sprint. It's every pitch matters, every swing matters. every, out matters. And so you're just going as hard as you possibly can. And by one way or the other, hopefully everybody's, feeling good. And there's a lot of guys that, the guys that play every day, I don't know, some of the position players, man, how they play every day and perform the way they do. It's just, I mean, it's incredible. Guys that play 150 plus games a year is just wild. And so you get to that part of the postseason and you can kind of see them take the governor off, and a lot of guys will have an even extra gear that they're able, that they can kind of tap into when you get into that heightened atmosphere. And so they're just different, but it's definitely a different beast in the postseason. You find out real quick, who's ready for it and who's not, no doubt.
So I got to ask one more question if you're cool with it.
Yeah, I'm good.
I think that someone like yourself, let's zoom out. You can answer it towards baseball if you want, but you've seen so much of that intensity, high pressure stakes, playing in front of thousands of people, overtime, hundreds of thousands of people. Country gets behind you, states get behind you. You're in those magnitude of moments. If you zoom out and you think to yourself, like, you've been in these crazy highs, and then you get into an off season, it's like silent, just like that, and you're back at home or whatnot. Like, what have you learned about life in terms of what you've been exposed to? You've been exposed to a lot. What does it come, like, what's coming or circulating to you? And this is an unfair question to ask on a podcast, probably, because it could maybe be reflected over for weeks or whatnot. But, like, what has it exposed you to about living and understanding about living?
That's a deep question, Harvey. I knew we were gonna have something like that in here. I think I mean, part of it we've hit on a little bit, right? And at the most simplistic form, it's that, being able to learn and adapt and build the skill of basically continuing to put one foot in front of the other and move forward, right? And it's all the pressure, the hard times, you have injuries, you have poor performance, whatever it may be. It's inevitable for everyone. Everyone's going to experience some type of it. There's hardly anyone that doesn't, deal with it in their own way, especially in our profession. And so at the root of it, one thing I've learned about myself is that I know no matter what happens, I can keep going. I can continue to put one foot in front of the other and come out the other side. That's a big one for me. And then something that I guess is probably in general important to me, but something I value a lot is, your close friends.
Wow.
And being able to have, 2, 3, 4, however many, 5, really close friends around you that are there for you and are a part of your life to the degree to where you can, talk about things like that. I think one of the reasons why you've always gotten along with so many people, and people are willing to share, deep thoughts and things with you, is because there's no judgment. It's all love, all one love, and all support, right? And so being able to have a few people like that in your life that you can be vulnerable with and you can share things with, highs and lows, whatever it may be. And so just being able to continue pushing on through whatever, hard times, and enjoy the good times too, when they come. And also just having, close family, close friends around you, that you can rely on, that are there for you, that, you have friendship, companionship, all that stuff. And I think those are two of, the most important things. You really start to see what matters, the older you get, the further you go, and the things that you experience. And those are two that I think are just super, super important, right?
100%. Selfishly, I'm just going to bang you with one more. I got to. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm good, bro.
Has companionship been difficult as you evolve? Because another one that I haven't experienced, but I've been fortunate to be friends with people like yourself, and it's hard sometimes. I think one of the things that I've found so much compassion on is that you do things publicly. So is companionship difficult to manage as your public status evolve?
I don't know. I think a lot of people would have different answers. Sure. I always just kind of looked at myself as a pretty normal guy, and so. But I also think that through my career path and experiences, being so fortunate to meet so many
Right.
different people, like in baseball, from so many different countries, different walks of life, different ways they grew up. And then obviously you get to, play Major League Baseball, play for some great organizations. You're meeting other people, like, different business people, entertainers, whatever it
Yeah.
may be. Um, One thing I feel like feel like I was inherently decent at it, from a younger age, but really has evolved to this point in my life to where, it gets a lot easier to tell, who's,
With you.
a good
Yeah.
person, who's with you, who's a good person, who's genuine, who cares about, similar things that you care
Mm.
about. And I feel like that's it's something that you can, it's some people are, don't have it. Some people do. I think you can learn it to a
Sure.
degree through
Yeah.
experience, probably a lot of bad experiences,
Yeah.
probably, to where you start to learn and see red flags with different people that maybe, aren't, trying to be close to you for the right reasons. But just being able to see in people, and, kind of peg them, from the first couple conversations,
Yeah.
about, is that the type of person that I want to be surrounded with, or not. And I feel like that's an important piece for sure.
Dude, I love talking to you, man. I really appreciate you jumping on and sharing a conversation with me. Yeah, I guess it's just fired up. That went by in a matter of seconds. Uh, Anything coming to mind? Anything speaking to you as we kind of close up here? Any final thoughts? Anything that's kind of circulating around you of everything we just kind of chopped up?
I don't know. We hit a lot of topics, so I love it. Always love chopping it up with you. You know that.
Dude, you just have like, so the thing is, I've tried to understand this and I've wanted to battle this. I sat with a monk in San Francisco this past year, and I went to a monastery to try to meet the monks. And the first time I went to this monastery, you couldn't talk to any of the monks. And I was just battling, trying to find my way through it. And eventually I found a guy who could speak to you, who was a monk. And so I sat with him in San Francisco, and he really broke down Zen to me in the most simplistic, which it is. It's simple, right? And it's the most simplistic thing. And as it does often, it was bothering me how simple it was, because you want to have an answer to things. You want to say, no, like it's more than that. And that's like something that I've been refraining from just listening to you.
What was it?
It was just like, I wanted to be like, but what? Like, what is Zen? And it's like, this is Zen. No, but what is Zen? Well, this is Zen. And you do this, it is Zen.
Well,
Go ahead.
it's probably in and of itself, it's simple, right? But it's probably complicated to get there.
Yeah, it's massively complicated. That's why I'm saying, like, listening to you talk right now is really fascinating, because it's like, what I got out of this with his name is Eli. What I learned with Eli was you just do the thing over and over and over again. And you just be present in the thing, the discipline of it, the obedience to it. And it's a never ending process. It's kind of like the whole, I don't know, there's a passage somewhere in the Bible about how to get to the completion of everything, it's through the narrow gate, not the broad gate. You have to narrowly go through it. You have to be walking the path. And it's the same process in Zen. It's like you need to be obedient to a never-ending process. There is no mountaintop. There is no outcome. It's just this process that you exist in, and you become obedient to it. And when you think outside of it as long-term, if you think, well, am I really going to be obedient or disciplined actions if I'm 35 right now and I live to be 90, am I seriously going to be obedient for the next 65 years? Like, that's so drastically big on your head that it's scary. But you can be obedient today, and you can be obedient tomorrow. And I think, like, just listening to you talk is one of the things that I've said multiple times in this conversation. That's just what I admire about you. I think that's what people admire about you who have been with you in clubhouses. It's still like the day where you stood up and spoke when you hit your 10 years in San Francisco, and you sort of touched on that. And that was a lot of what people were recognizing of you in that specific day. But when you hear you speak about the daily obedience to a thing, and you really wrap your head around the fact that, like, you've kind of been hammering this for almost 2 decades if you go back to high school, and it becomes a part of you. And then you're right. It's like mathematically, it's like, okay, I have this vision of my head of what I can get to in the future. I have two decades worth of mathematical solutions that prove this process right. And then fortunately, yeah, I agree with you. Unfortunately, I think it's just really hard for our brains at large scale for so many people to like wrap their head around that, because it seems so scary when in reality it's just like, just do it today. And in a way you could almost start over again today. Just start over again today. But yeah, I don't know. That's what I really enjoy about listening to you. I like that.
No, you're the best. I appreciate that. Well, it's kind of like what was the conversation that you and I had like a month or two ago? It was like about if you are just always faking it till you make it. Are you really faking it? I was kind of, I mean, I was ribbing a little bit, but it's a real question, right? Like,
I can't believe I forgot about that.
Goes hand in hand, and it probably goes hand in hand with like being on, you know, out of your comfort zone, uncomfortable, right? To where it's like, nobody, even the people that consistently do the hard things and things you don't want to do, nobody, you know, not many people like doing it, you know, what it takes, but you do it anyway. So in a way, you really are kind of
faking it,
faking it, you know, until you make it. But if you're doing that every day and you're consistent and doing the thing that you really, a lot of times you don't want to do. Like, I just got my ass kicked for 2 hours earlier this morning. I knew I was going to get my ass kicked when I went in there. Did I want to go in there and do that?
No.
Hell no. But I did it, right? Like I know Mondays are brutal, but you still do it, right? And so it's like, if you fake it long enough, or you do the things you don't want to do, which you're uncomfortable with for long enough, I mean, essentially, it kind of is who you are. You know what I mean? Like, that is who you are. Even if you, in your head, you don't want to be there, you don't want to do it, but you're doing it anyway, and you're doing it to the best of your ability. Like, that is who you become. And when you do those things for long enough, you know, then maybe every now and then, you know, if you're as consistent as you should be at living in the uncomfortable and, you know, doing the things you don't want to do, but know you have to do them to get to where you want to go, then maybe, you know, take a day, you know, like that, because then it's, you know, it's built into because you're so consistent at whatever it is that you're doing, you know what I mean?
I do. It's kind of like it's going back to what you said about being worthy. It's like you're becoming worthy. It's the process of burning off all that other stuff to become that. Like, you're being worthy of yourself. You feeling good and comfortable as yourself is kind of how I take that. But, oh man, I love you, brother. I appreciate you. Thanks for popping.
It's great to catch up, dude. No. Hey, you don't look too tired.
No, I didn't. Well, I didn't crush myself. My Mondays, you know, I get stretched in a little bit.
No, I'm talking about with the kid, dude. I know you're getting it after.
Oh yeah. No, I've been battling with the kid. I love the kid. The kid is a whole nother story podcast. That is a fuel I have not experienced. Fatherhood is a magical thing. So
you're figuring out that new routine.
I'm burning off the old unworthies of heart, man. I got to keep it rolling. So, all right, hang with me for a second. That was beautiful.
Thanks, Harvey.